Good evening and welcome to tonight's Monday night panel. Very disappointing weekend football-wise, but I'm sure the guys on the panel will go through and tell it how it is. So tonight we've got Martin, James and Anna. Of course, we've got Vic, who will be our host, and I'll just bring Vic on now. Good evening, Vic.
Good evening to you, Chris. Or is it? I'm not sure, really.
No, it's not the best of evenings, is it? So,
well, it's a beautiful evening. I have to say, sun is streaming through the window, but there you go.
Did you have snow this morning?
No snow in the southwest, but
we
maybe tomorrow. Yes.
Well, yeah, we had a little bit, but not nothing to talk about. But yes, we had a little bit. Okay, so let's bring on the panel for tonight. So let's say hello to Anna.
Hi,
James. And here's Martin. Okay, hi. So if you want to leave any questions, leave them in the comments section and we'll go through as many as we can. And I will speak to you all later. Enjoy.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. I got some comments on my Twitter feed already. I bet you can kind of guess what they are. Anna Tursley, hello to you. Martin Smithers, hello to you. And James Spencer, thank you very much indeed for your late substitution. Very grateful for your presence this evening. Thank you. Right, let's get straight to it then. 2 games over Easter, 2 defeats. Just miraculously, talking about Easter miracles, we're outside the bottom 4, for goodness sake. Who knew? But we are on goals scored. And, I mean, all right, we played okay today. We played some nice football. But unfortunately, at the end of the season, when you look at the results, it's a 2-1 defeat. What were your thoughts on Burton?
Yeah, I mean, John Sheridan was probably right in his post-match interview that he has to take the positives from the game because he's got to go back in and get some positive feelings going for the game on Saturday. But in terms of what we achieved and what we offered, we didn't really we dominated possession. We didn't create enough chances. There was a little bit of hoofing up into the area that Pittman is never going to get to, basically, is he? He's not mobile enough, and we know that. I suppose positives in terms of Missalou, Twine and Payne, I thought, well, they were looking to get on the front foot all the time and drive forward. But when they get the ball, I think the difference between us and Burton today was that when we got the ball, pretty much, there weren't enough options going forward. And when Burton got the ball, there were options. And then of course you got the set piece defending, which we know was pretty shocking today. So overall, not a great Easter weekend, really, was it? And like you said, the fact that we find ourselves still outside the relegation zone is kind of fortuitous. And just thanks to the other teams also losing games, so they're not great.
I thought Christopher Missalou was excellent first half. He looked tremendous, James. Second half, we had all that spell. I mean, the only really dangerous spell that Burton had was that 20 minutes, wasn't it? Where they seemed to be really in control of the game. But then we got back into it after a fabulous goal from Payne, let's be honest. It really was a great goal. Not just the shot, but the pass out to him by Scott Twine and his control leading up to that pass. But, as I've said, unfortunately, in tomorrow morning's newspapers, it doesn't say, we played some really nice football. It says Burton 2, Swindon 1. And that's the bottom line, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. I think we'd all like to play nice football. We'd all like to have decent possession. But ultimately, the position we're in, we need to win, or we need to draw at least. I think the least we deserved from the game was a draw. I don't very often agree with Sheridan, and I didn't agree with much of the things he said in the post-match interview. But I think one thing I did agree with him on is we least deserved something from the game, and probably did deserve just, to kind of potentially take all 3 points. But I think I agree with Anna. I think, we had a couple of good chances, didn't take them. And I think we looked woeful up front, really, I would say. I think, everything that kind of came up front, our passing was decent at times. There were some good moves, but we just had no one to finish it, really. And I think, I'm not sure really that, a striker of 33, 34 can play, 2 games in a couple of days. He looked massively off the pace today, I have to say, more so than normal. So, yeah, disappointing.
Yeah, Martin, I think the one thing you'd say, there were 2 issues for me today. It's past the captain's armband at the minute, isn't it? It seems to be. And 15 minutes, you go 2-1 down. You've got to get the point, at least a point from the game, but you don't bring your attacking substitutes on till about 90 seconds to the end, which I think most of us couldn't really understand, could we?
Yeah, I mean, we've had other games recently where he seemed to chuck on 4 players, 5 players when the game has been lost, when we're 3-1 down or whatever. When the game is still there to get something, when we're only 2-1 down, he's waiting until far too late to make the changes.
Yeah, which I think most people would agree today, Martin, was the case, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was just not enough in the final third. Pittman, he's not got age on his side. He needs someone alongside him, I would say. Probably for the whole game. I mean, if he's going to play, I think he needs someone up front with him.
We've already got comments coming in, and let's go. This is from Steve. Do you think the constant negativity from fans affects the players? Anna, what do you think about that one?
You can't help but be negative, though, can you? And it's not like we're on the sidelines this season, so they can't hear the negative vibes from the. We're not being dragged in from the sidelines. So I'd say no, because for that very reason, that there are no fans at the game. So away games pretty much blend into home games. You don't get a disadvantage from playing away, aside from the fact you don't really know the pitch and you've got to travel. So and there's nothing to be positive about, really, is there? There's nothing behind the scenes, and there's not much on the pitch either, or there's nothing on the pitch. So I don't see how fans will negatively influence at this stage, to be honest. If they give us something to shout about positively, then even then, actually, we can't really influence how the season's going to finish up.
James, what's your view on that? Because let's be honest, half the joy of going to football most of the time is to have a darn good moan, isn't it? We can't do that at the minute. We can't shout at referees. We can't shout at assistant referees. We can't do any of that. So, I get the point, but what do you think on that?
I think the players are probably this season, given where we're at in the league and the fact we're right at the bottom, and most of the performances, 80-90% of the performances have been dire most of the time. I think the players are getting off lightly because the fans are not in the ground. I can just imagine a county ground with, even in a relegation fight, maybe 8,000 or 9,000 fans in there. Some of the performances we've seen, the fans would be going mad, and those players would know 100% what the fans thought about them. At the moment, they're not getting that feedback, and to be honest, I think even people have given up now, kind of saying things on social media, or because I think we went through a phase a few months back where players were being targeted on social media. And I don't even think that's happening now, because I think some fans have just kind of given up almost. I just think, I don't know. I just think I think the whole club there's just everything's wrong really at the moment. It just feels, I can't see how we can be positive when we're having to watch that week in, week out, and especially given, what we saw last season, which was kind of the other end of the spectrum. That's the worst thing. Had we not had such a wonderful season last year, then you could probably tolerate it a little bit more this season, but not from where we went last season. And then you see people like, Yates scoring 20 goals now this season, and just think, he slipped through our net. We just didn't make the effort, money-wise, to kind of keep him. And look where we could have been with a striker like that. Instead we've got Pittman, who really isn't up to the job. It's his last proper club, I think, really, to be honest. He does the odd good thing. He scores the odd good goal, but I think, we can't play. I think Martin said a minute ago, we cannot keep on playing with just him up front. He needs help. He really does need help. Well,
here's Jamie Newton has sent this stat, and I'm just going to give this to you, Martin, because I know you're a numbers person. Jerry Yates, Owen Doyle, and Kane Woolery goals combined this season 48. As we know, Jerry Yates got a couple today, didn't he? And got one on Saturday. Swindon Town's combined total this season 45. So those three players have got 3 more goals than our entire output this season. Kind of says it all, really, doesn't it?
It doesn't make good reading. It's not so much the fact we've lost them, we haven't come remotely close to replacing them, have we?
Yeah, that is the point.
Accept that people like Jerry Yates is probably going to want more money than Swindon Town can probably offer. I mean, perhaps it's a sad indictment that Blackpool can offer them more money than Swindon. I don't know, but You can accept also perhaps Doyle's gone to Bolton. They've got greater financial resources. They're a bigger club, arguably. You can accept them sort of things, but it's the fact that the replacements we brought in, you know, it's like probably Pittman's testimonial year, isn't it? Tyler Smith, to be fair, we brought in. I thought he was doing quite well. I thought his goal return was quite good this, you know, the other side of Christmas, but we've barely seen him since. And beyond that, there's not much to talk about, is there, really, striking option-wise?
No, and I think we said right at the start of the season, when we spoke to Richie Wellens, if I may mention his name without getting abused, when we spoke to Richie Wellens, he said they've lost, you know, what Jerry Yates scored. They've lost, obviously, what Owen Doyle scored, Cassie Anderson, 50-odd goals, which, as you said, Martin, that's difficult to replace, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if we had kept all them players, I have no doubt Wellens wouldn't have gone, would he? He'd have still been here. We'd be sort of, I think we'd be mid-table minimum. We wouldn't be stuck with Sheridan now, would we?
No.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. And this is from Steve C. I hate to say it, but is it better to go down with so many players out of contract at the end of the season? Because this is something we see every year, it seems to me, the wholesale changing of a team. And I'm quite old school. I kind of believe that you build a team and it's a solid team and you keep it for at least 3 years, and that's the way of building a team. But that's not what we're seeing recently, is it?
No, and there's absolutely no building for the future. So I don't think it actually makes a lot of difference whether we stay up this season or go down. If we stay up this season, we're going to be in the same position this time next year, in my view, because we have, I think, 2/3 of the players out of contract, if you include loanees and out of contract players. Sorry. So every year this happens. There's no policy at the club for recruitment, and I failed to see what the policy for recruitment was last season. And this close season, it's not going to be any different, is it? Really, there's no finances coming in from the financial backing coming in from fans through the doors. So it just kind of beggars belief, really, that we can exist as a club like this year on year with no forward thinking, no building, just every year recycle and throw the dice effectively. And I do think that last year we were lucky in many respects. We had a good manager. We got lucky with the recruitment. The policy for recruitment in the close season last season, there wasn't one, was there? And Wellens could see it, I think, and that's why he went. So you can maybe point the finger at him partly for the recruitment that didn't happen, but you have to worry if we do go down with the number of changes we're going to see in the close season anyway. Are we at risk of going further through? I can't see us, bouncing back up again, to be honest. I think we're in real trouble.
And another thing is, of course, James, this court case which is hanging over the club. I know you're involved with the trust, and there is a question here about the trust. Any news from the club on what they're thinking on season tickets? With the official supporters club and the trust waiting on the club to meet with us to discuss the feedback from the surveys. It's a recurring theme. What on earth is bleep happening? And I say that because I am a season ticket holder. I want to buy another season ticket. I want to go and watch Swindon Town next season. I want them to win. I want them to do well. But at the minute, we don't know anything about it. We don't know what's happening. We don't know who's going to be in charge of the club. All these questions need to be answered, don't they?
They absolutely do. And the reason we're in the position we're in this season, i.e. scraping the barrel, I think, with some players, not really getting the players in that Richie wanted, hence why he left, is all down to ultimately our current chairman knowing what was going on behind the scenes before we all did, i.e. with these court cases. He didn't want to invest money that ultimately, he didn't know whether, well, A, I guess he didn't know, what was going to go on with the ownership of the club, and B, obviously with COVID, they've got to try and balance the book somehow. But I think you'd argue that every other club in our division's in the same boat as we are, as are all the other clubs in all other leagues, where they've had no income coming in. But ultimately, the money that's been given to the club, well, not given is probably the wrong word, but the money the club has actually got, whether it be loans, whether it be grants, whether it be money from other sources, etc. They've had a reasonable amount of money coming in. It's not been it's been reasonable, and I think we've massively. I think that's the whole thing. There's just been no strategy, and it's really just kind of working, an inch in front of your nose. Ultimately, there's no strategy. There's no knowing where we're going to be in 12 months' time. And I think the problem is, and I agree with Anna on this one, I think if we do go down, or even if we stay in this league, I think it'll be the same next season, because there's no visibility at the moment that anything's going to happen outside of those court cases. Sure, if it gets agreed out of court, then brilliant. And it means we can, hopefully we can move forward as a club and with new owners, et cetera. But if it doesn't, and it goes to the court cases, that's going to be probably early next year now, because there is a backlog in court cases. And I know they said the end of this year, but I think it's highly likely it'll be in February, March time next year before that court
Which is almost the end of next season, isn't it?
Exactly. So ultimately, the club, if that is the case, the club will basically, whichever league we're in, even if we stay in League One, we'll do it on the cheap again next season, and we'll be in exactly the same situation. And ultimately, please God, don't let John Sheridan be here next season. I think we all probably agree on that. But then, of course, you've got to try and attract a manager as well, a decent manager. But if you're not going to give him, a decent go at the league, whichever league we're in, because the budget's so poor, because you don't know who's going to own the club, then what kind of manager are we going to be able to attract? We're not. We're going to get another cheap manager in with a cheap budget. Okay, if we're lucky, we might do okay, but I just can't. The only way I can see things getting better more quickly is if that court case, if our current owner decides that he's not going to win it and ultimately agrees to settle out of court in some way, and we get new owners quicker than the court case. I think that's the only way we'll see positivity next season. But if someone asked me what my feeling was, I'd say I suspect it will go to the court case. I really can't see how it won't. We've already heard in the press about Mr. Wolfini having offered to buy Lee Power, his shares and take over the club. And by all accounts, reading the article, it looks like that offer was made a few months ago. So the fact that hasn't been accepted, obviously we don't know what the details of that are. It might not be enough money for what Mr. Power's looking for, but the fact that hasn't happened doesn't particularly inspire me that it's not all going to get settled before that court case.
No, I think that's the trouble. Sorry, Anna, go on.
Yeah, just a quick question back to James. If an offer's being made for the club, who is the offer going to? Because if we don't know who owns the club, how can that offer be successful?
Exactly, Anna. And I think again, I'm only kind of talking about what the article or the press release that Mr. Muffini kind of released in the Adver a few weeks back. But by all accounts, I think he offered to buy the club. But you're right. Who owns the club? Who owns the percentage of? So where does that money get distributed? And if you can't agree that behind the scenes before the court case, then surely exactly who gets that? Whatever Mr. Muffini's offering, who gets that split? You just don't know, do you? It's just impossible to know. They've got to make that agreement in terms of between themselves who owns what, and then if an offer is put in, then that money gets distributed accordingly. But I suspect that it probably wasn't enough for what he wants, and he obviously feels maybe that going to court he'll get what he needs. But by all accounts, having read all of the details that from the original court case when all these things were highlighted and originally raised, I can't see from the evidence that was put in front of us through the court documents. Really can't see. Some of it's quite. I can't say how we can feel that he would win it personally, but obviously he knows everything better than we do. So
I think the one thing, Martin, is I think we just want this stalemate over with, don't we? Because I can't see the club moving forward right now. Can you?
No, we're in massive limbo until the ownership is sort of finalised, sorted out. We're going to be fighting fires, aren't we, on a month-to-month basis. I think the last 7 games this season are absolutely huge, because I think if we go down, there's a real risk that we'll go down again. To be honest, I think we're just the definition of a problem club. And you've seen we've had clubs like Luton, Yeovil and Notts County. They played in the Championship more recently than we have. That's not stopped them going all the way down to the conference, and don't even get started on the conference, because that's hard work to get out of too, isn't it? It's unforgiven now. The next 7 games are huge.
Yeah, lots of questions coming in, so let's get through this. From Kev Anna, we need to score more. Yes, we do. Is Pittman and Twine worth keeping in the team right now? I mean, the frustrating thing for me was right at the end we had a free kick, and our one tactic to go to, Anna, in that last couple of minutes was Scott Twine is going to shoot from 30 yards. That's it.
Yeah, I think I was talking about this as he lined up for the free kick, that whilst obviously it's a great outlet and he has hit some really good free kicks from that sort of distance, he's probably got a 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 hit rate at best. So you cannot rely on that all the time, but that is what we're relying on when we get a free kick. If you're aiming for Pittman, is he going to get his head on it? If he gets his head on it and knock it down, is there anyone to tap it inside the 6-yard box? We're just not creating enough clear-cut chances. I think Pittman put one against a defender on the line, didn't he? And then there was a header later on, which he put past the post from a shot. So, but we just don't have enough attacking options. If you'd have said to me, I've never been a fan of one up front, to be honest. I kind of hark back to the Painter and Cox days, or the Mays and Rowlands days, where you had 2 strikers, one playing off the other. Pittman as a lone striker just does not work. He's not mobile enough. He's not quick enough. He doesn't close down the defenders. The ball goes over the top. Aside from the goal he scored against, I don't know, a couple of weeks back, when I think the ball dropped over the top and he hit it well. He's not that sort of player, is he? He can't run onto the ball over the top. Whereas someone like Tyler Smith playing off him can do that, and he's quicker. So there's no answer for this season, is there? Because we're stuck with Pittman as that striker. Tyler Smith hasn't had enough games. I think it's probably too late for him to come in now and pick up. Omatoye, goodness knows what's happened to him. He seems to be sat on the bench alongside Taylor Curran, which we thought was a lot of fun doing. I don't know what the answer is for this season. It's really kind of, I suppose, it is about playing the percentages, getting the ball in the box, but also moving it on the ground. You can see that Jack Payne, if he gets into the box and has a shot, he's got a good strike on him. So those attacking midfielders get them further forward in support of Pittman, maybe. But it's not looking great, is it?
It's not. I mean, you said Mays and Rowland. Of course, they have backups of Bates and Gilchrist, who could also come in and were a great partnership and score goals as well. So, we haven't got one partnership, let alone 2. This is from Derek James. Another abject performance by JS with its decision making. Do the panel really believe that we have enough about us to stay up this season? If we'd got something from today, I'd been reasonably optimistic. We should mention, actually, there was one creative free kick when Palmer pushed the ball forward to Scott Twine, who then had a shot and made the keeper saved it. So it's slightly different. So we'll credit that. But what do you think? I mean, I would have been really reasonably optimistic if we got something from today and kept Burton kind of in it. But they've gone now, aren't they? You can say they're safe and they're going to stay up.
Yeah, I think by the if you carried on watching iFollow and didn't just turn it straight off after the final whistle, you would have seen Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and all of his coaching staff embracing. I think that kind of told a bit of a story. Ultimately, They see themselves as now, although they're not kind of mathematically safe. Ultimately, that's really significant result for them. Really, really significant. I guess going back to your original question, do I think we'll stay up? I was saying to you before, just before we started the actual. The thing a minute ago. The amazing thing for me, and I've always thought this, is that every team seems to be doing their best to ultimately keep us up to some extent. There's always 1 or 2 teams that get a half decent result at the bottom, but no one's really, other than Burton, no one's really pulling away. And we're all still in the mix. We're all literally 1 or 2 points, going down to our goal difference. We've scored more goals than a few of the teams down there. We've got, a game in hand on a few of the teams as well. If someone was to ask me, I would probably say I think we will just about scrape it to stay up, but I think it'll go down to the final game of the season. personally.
Well, this is from Mark B. We're still in with a chance. Rochdale, Wigan, and Wimbledon are games we can win, Martin. And if you pick up two, huge week coming up, isn't it? After Saturday, you got Rochdale away on the Tuesday, Wimbledon away on the Saturday. They're massive games, really. You pick 6 points up from them. Let's be optimistic about it. That puts you on what? 43 points? Yeah. So, you know, we're not talking about a massive amount this season. We're not talking about 50 points to stay up, are we? So does that put us in with a shout?
We're not dead and buried. There's 6 poor teams down there, including us. Obviously, we've got Rochdale and Wigan to play. We've beaten in the first round of games, I believe. Wimbledon we lost at home to, but they're a team that
one shot in the whole game, didn't they? And it went in.
We've got a chance at their place. And like you say, I mean, what are we on, 37? We might only need 45, 46 points. So it's not impossible. And we're playing direct opposition in the last 7. So it is there for us. And it's going to keep us hanging on, I think. I think it's going to go right down to the last game. And we're going to be... I don't think we're going to want to go into that Wigan game needing a win, but we can go into that Wigan game needing a draw, and the pressure's all on Wigan. Who knows how that will pan out?
There are one or two kind of nice little conundrums there, aren't they? Matty Palmer went off to Wigan, didn't he? And John Sheridan was at Wigan, and you know, it all goes round, doesn't it? It all comes round, really. So interesting. And who was the Swindon player went to Wigan in the summer? There was another one. Didn't the winger go there? Oh gosh, his name's escaped me now. Or have I dreamt that? No? Anyone want to come up with the answer? No, we've gone quiet. Okay, fair enough. Maybe I did dream it. Okay. Anna, this is from Steve C. What does the panel think about Sheridan's public comments about Dion's fitness? Dion Conroy, of course. Now, I would say in Dion Conroy's defence, and he's been out injured twice, very seriously. Then he's come back in and played a lot of games in a short space of time, with no pre-season, really, just sort of straight back into playing. It's hardly surprising he's going to pick up an injury. And I kind of feel with a player like Dion, who mentally must have been through an absolute shed load of emotions in the last 12 months, it must be a difficult gig for him to come back in and play so many games in a short space of time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer a slightly different question, but I don't think a manager should come and call anybody out particularly like that. I mean, Sheridan quite often says after games, I don't talk about particular players, and yet then he does. So that's a little bit incongruous, isn't it? And the fact that he's pretty publicly taken, Broadbent and Conroy off as the two central defensive pairing on two successive games, and then he's not only left them out of the team, but he's left them at home as we travel. It says it's kind of a public shaming, really, and I don't think that sits well with the fans. I can't imagine what it's like for the players. There was Alex Rodman who was commentating for. Was it at the Fleetwood game? He was the coach.
No, it's Bristol Rovers. It was Bristol Rovers away. Okay. Who will ever forget that?
And he was talking about Sheridan. He played for Sheridan at Newport, and he was talking about Sheridan is a fear manager. So Sheridan is someone who says, you don't do what I tell you to do, you disagree with me, you're out, and you're kind of publicly out as well, aren't you? And this is what he does. But in the pre-match press conference before the Blackpool game, I think he was quizzed about that, wasn't he? He was talking about, and he said, I'm not to the players in training, I'm not the person you see on the sidelines during a game. He said something about being their friend. Well, that's not what we want to hear as fans, is it? It's clearly not true anyway. But he's trying to address the fact that we as fans have seen and heard him shouting abuse at the players whilst on the pitch, and he's trying to say, well, that's not how I am behind the scenes. But clearly, he pretty much is. And you either like that sort of approach as a player or you don't. And I can't imagine that many would like being publicly called out like he's done to Conroy. I just don't think it's right. Yeah,
and whether Conroy will figure again this season, unlikely, I would think, at the minute. He's nowhere near it, is he? This is from Anthony. Why don't the media ask John Sheridan about the strikers we needed in the January transfer window? Lee Power did his old mates at Norwich a favour by bringing in Omatoyi, who's nowhere near the first team. Well, we've discussed him, James, and no, I for the life of me, I can't understand it. The only thing I can say is, was he a short-term replacement for Giacchini, who left at the last minute? He had to get somebody in quickly. Who knows? Anyway, from Sean, Sheridan doesn't have a plan B. Making subs at 90 minutes is what you do to waste time when you're winning. From Anthony, power has stopped caring and bothering. That's why Wellens walked. It's been a shambolic mess. Goodness me. Let's see. Sheridan took poor. This is from Joe. Sheridan took poor management to a new level today, persisting with Pittman as a lone striker. 3 attacking players on the bench. Why not use them? And from Steve C, would the panel have Richie back if we go down? James Spencer, what would you say to that?
I'd have Richie Wellens back. I'd actually go and drive him back from Salford to Swindon tomorrow if someone if he was up for it. But I personally think I think that one's gone, to be honest. Whichever league we're in next season, whether we need a new manager or not, if Mr. Power does decide to keep Mr. Sheridan, then let's hope that's not the case. But if we do need a new manager, I would have said absolutely. Let's look at Richie. But I think ultimately his brand's taken a bit of a battering by all accounts now, hasn't it? With what's happened obviously at Salford. Very strange situation now. I think by all accounts he fell out with a couple of players. The changing room, he lost some of the changing room by all accounts from what I can hear, what I've read. The owners of Salford are obviously desperate to get them up. They're trying to buy the league ultimately. Didn't feel like they were making enough progress, even though he won a cup. But yeah, I'd ultimately have Richie back in a heartbeat. But I honestly don't think he would. I think by all accounts, I think half of the reason for him moving back was his family, being able to be near his family again. I think ultimately, when someone's that far away and not seeing his family for months on end, it's going to be hard. And it doesn't appear that he needs to work, from what I can see from his house and various other things. Done well for himself. So I think I don't think that'll happen. But we do need to start thinking about who that manager is going to be for next season. Maybe we already know, I don't know. But based on but your previous question about Omotoye, I think we panicked. I think by all accounts we thought someone was going to come in and buy time. That didn't happen. So therefore we had to sell DJ. I don't think they thought they were going to sell DJ. He was training the day of the transfer window. So if it was all planned, you would imagine that he wouldn't have done that. So it seems like we didn't sell Twine. We needed the money, so we sold DJ instead. And hence why we panicked then. I think of all the people that came in, Garrick is probably the only one I think that looks half decent. Surprised he didn't start today, but I think he was one of our better players on Friday. But I kind of know why, in the sense that he wants to pay Payne up front more and more up front, more forward position rather than kind of a more defensive midfield player that maybe he was playing on Friday. So you can't have Garrick and Payne really. I don't think. So he chose Payne, and Garrick kind of got moved back to the bench. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. What would you? Briefly on that, Martin. I mean, I agree with James. I think that ship has sailed, and it's a bit like the argument about bringing, Paolo Di Canio back. That ship's gone. Forget it. It's finished. It's not going to happen. Is that your view on it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have Wellens back, but I just don't think it's worth discussing because I just don't think it's going to happen. It would be welcome if it did, from my point of view, because I think it would immediately change the brand of football, or at least get us playing football again the right way. But no, it's not going to happen. We're probably more likely to have Sheridan next season, aren't we, than Wellens coming back?
The only way he'd come back is if there was a change in ownership, I think.
Yeah.
Go on, Anna. Sorry.
Voice then. I just say I'm the only dissenting voice then because I won't have him back.
Okay, fair enough.
That ship's sailed, I think too much water under the bridge, and like you said, the brand has taken a knock.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. So that's the end of that one, I think. Where are we going? Oh, yeah, this is from Rob. Lee Power doesn't care anymore. The club is now a millstone around his neck. Right. How about this, Martin, from Stephen? And this is a recurring theme. Nobody knows what's happening with the club through the lack of transparency. How can Power be forced to change his attitude? Well, I think the simple question, the simple answer to that is he can't be forced. Nobody can force anybody to do anything. What's your view on that? I mean, as I said before, we desperately want to know what's going on because, we support this club. I've watched them since 1968 live, and before that, I was a supporter, a long time. And, I do care about them. So what do you think?
Well, if you excuse the pun, without fans there, it feels that we're sort of powerless to sort of show the dissent, to make our voice heard. It's, imagine if we were there when Sheridan made the 5 substitutions in one hit. I mean, I think the atmosphere would have been toxic if it wasn't already. I think you can't gauge the mood as well, can you? I mean, I know social media, you can see that fans aren't happy, but until you see it firsthand in front of you in a stadium with 8,000 people, it might not hit home with him. But I really don't know what's going through Lee Power's mind, to be honest.
You might remember, Anna, one game when we got relegated before, there was a pretty toxic atmosphere then, wasn't there, on the last day of the season. I think it was against Scunthorpe, and we had to win, and we didn't. So we went down. It was pretty toxic then. So fans made their views felt, but, nothing happened. So it was the same mode of the following season. So I don't think you can force anybody to change their views, can you?
No, we the only weapon we've really got, I suppose, at the moment is to not purchase a season ticket, and they're not even on offer at the moment.
No,
for reasons that we well know. So I think, Lee Power is what he is. He's not really interested. He's never been interested in the view of the fans. Last season, it was a case of he bought somebody in, or Wellens came in the season before that, but he bought somebody in who made the club a community club. We don't have that kind of that boot room strategy of bringing through somebody who cares about the club. You're continuously bringing in a manager to, in this case, this season with Sheridan, to firefight. Power just doesn't care. He doesn't care about talking to the fans. Doesn't care about talking to fans' representatives like the trust and the supporters club, unless there's something in it for him. And if there isn't anything in it for him, he'll just walk away. So I think we're on a hiding to nothing with Lee Power as an owner. We desperately need him to kind of relinquish control. But as James was saying, I suspect that the club is tied up in knots in terms of the ownership, not just about on the subject of who owns the club, but the number of companies that are involved in various guises. And we've seen that before with other football clubs, that an owner may come in, or a prospective owner may come in and make an offer. We're trying to unpick where the money is and what the debts are. Actually is a very long-winded process, and it may be that before that can be done, it's already too late. So Lee Power, you'd like to think he might think about setting out a court. I'm sure that it's going to be costly to go through the court process, but if, as James said, he thinks he can win, he'll stick it out, and that's to the detriment of the entire club and the community and the fans.
Yeah, from my point of view, the sad thing about the Wellens situation was what he'd done. He built those bridges with the fans, and you're quite right, Anna. The club was as one, wasn't it? For a brief spell, we had that lovely time when we were all kind of looking forward, and it was a great time to be a Swindon fan last season. It really was. We had those events with the Low Stranger in the Legends Lounge when Richie stayed for hours after the game, talking after the session had finished, talking to fans, and he kept saying, "I've got to go because we've got to be in training at 6:30 or something." And he kept talking and talking and talking, and that to me is the sad aspect of this, because we had a manager we thought that was bringing the community together, and that to me was the disappointment. Anyway, I think you're right. I think that ship has well sailed. So let's move on. Peter Walters says, "Can Anna be our new manager?" Any? Do you want to fancy that, Anna?
Yeah, all right then. We'll do it.
Excellent. Right, this is from Pete. And it's a big one, James, we win against Rochdale, Wimbledon and Wigan, would it be enough? Would the panellists sign up for those 9 points and nothing else now? 9 points, that would give us 46. Ooh,
yes.
I think I probably would. Yes, I think so.
Someone offered me 9 points now, I'd snap the hand off.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. Yes. Is that realistic, though, James, to get 9 out of those 3? It is realistic, because, of course, you can win all 3. But is it realistic?
I know what we've said about the number of points that will keep us out. I have a suspicion it will be extremely low this season, probably even lower than, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not 43, 44 points. It goes down to goal difference, goals scored, whatever it's going to go down to. So if someone offered me 9 points now, like I said, I'd snap their hand off. I think we can definitely win a couple of those games. I really do. I think my worry is that, and I kind of go back to one of the points made a minute ago, really, about Sheridan as a manager. I think to some extent his, banishing people like Conroy and Broadbent from the team, and ultimately flogging them in public, which is really what he's done, to be perfectly honest. Okay, we've been more since Grant and Ellis, and the kind of the defence we've got at the moment. Ultimately, has been in place. Yeah, we've conceded less goals, but it's probably the shortest back 3 that we've ever had, if you look at them. And had we had a Conroy or a Broadbent in the team today, I know it's easy to say, in hindsight, but it's highly likely that at least one of those goals would not have been conceded, because when I first saw Burton warming up today, I thought, Christ, they're tall compared to us, and we look a really short team, and it, ultimately that's what that was our undoing, really. Okay, you've got to defend properly, and you've got to mark those players, but had we had a Conroy or Broadbent marking against those players, potentially, at least one of those goals would not have been scored. I'd be very surprised if one of them had been. So, we might have got a draw out of it, might even have gone on to win. But yeah, it's I just feel a little bit like it's he doesn't always think for the best reasons of the club when he makes these decisions. He keeps on talking about, we must stay in this league, but then, some of our best players have been banished from the team and flogged in public, and it's not just the ones I've already mentioned. There's others this season as well. I feel a lot of that is down to his relationship with them. I don't know, or the kind of approach, the old school manager approach he uses, very different to Richie's approach. Had we had a Richie Wellens, Richie played several players last season, that maybe he didn't get on with particularly well, or actually, had done some things that maybe weren't the greatest. Keshi being one of them. He kind of gave him 3 or 4 chances last season, but Richie was always thinking about the club and getting results, rather than, I think with Sheridan, he thinks about his, he makes decisions based on his kind of heart, but doesn't think with his head sometimes. And the fact that he's ultimately, he's making us weaker and worse as a team by some of the decisions he's made on players this season, if I'm honest.
This is from Mitchell. Lloyd Isgrove was on trial at Wigan, but ended up at Bolton. Thank you very much indeed for that, Mitchell. Yes. I can sleep easy at night, because that was going to annoy me for the rest of the evening now. This is from Martin. Is there a league club in worse position on and off the pitch than us? Well, the honest answer is we don't know. And I go back to the end of last season when, coronavirus, let's be honest, football is, 126,000 people have died. So in relative terms, we're talking about football. So, but it did hit the club badly, didn't it? With 5 home games to come, which would have been double figure crowds, wouldn't it, in terms of thousands? So financially, it did hit the club badly.
Yeah, we secured the signings of Doyle and Yates for the sort of run-in based on the fact that in the last 4 games we were going to get 10,000 fans plus, and of course we would have done. It wouldn't have surprised me. We might have had a sellout maybe in one of the last couple of games. It's difficult to know how hard it's hit us compared to other clubs. I'm not sure Southend and Colchester are in great shape, especially Southend are in dire straits, aren't they, with their finances. But the only thing that surprised me with the pandemic is that, it's a fortunate thing that a Football League club hasn't gone to the wall, because it's a long time without decent level of income, isn't it?
Yeah, I am genuinely surprised, Anna, that that's not happened, aren't you? Back in September, say, you would have predicted that, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 might have gone.
Yeah, I suppose you discount Macclesfield, don't you? Because they were for slightly different reasons that they no longer exist. But yeah, if you look at what's happening in the National League, though, that's a bit of a bun fight, isn't it? And below the National League South and North, they're struggling with decisions that are being made at National League level. And undoubtedly, the pandemic hit us hard in terms of the revenue not coming in through the turnstiles. We just don't know how much more it's affected us than other clubs. We're in theory in the same sort of position, but of course the complete lack of transparency means that we have absolutely no clue what the other revenue streams possibly are and what's happened to transfer monies and so on. I don't know, there's still some way to go yet, isn't there, before we can get to full grounds again in season ticket sales and away travel. Which is what I'm really looking forward to, whatever division we're in, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we all are. Yeah, today would have been great. I mean, I was talking to Rob Hartley before we started doing this, and we were saying the end that Swindon attacked in the second half was the away end, wasn't it? And you can imagine on a day like this, it would have been full. And who knows what might have made a huge difference, mightn't it? If we'd all been at that end, you just don't know. And hey, it's all if, buts, and maybes. From Anthony, time to start a campaign to show the displeasure of the fans, get the advertiser, OSC and the trust all involved. What do you think, James? Would that make any difference? Bearing in mind what we said already, we can moan and we can do this, that and the other, but until something moves, what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, really, until the ownership piece is sorted out, I think it's like a pack of cards, really. Nothing can kind of move until the first movement, which is obviously the ownership. It's that's got to that'll lead to fresh impetus, assuming Mr. Power doesn't stay, obviously, and he does leave the club. Someone else comes in, and whether those people that come in are single owners or a conglomerate of kind of fan ownership, whatever it is, we just need that to happen. We just need it to happen as soon as possible, so that actually we can get back to building our club back up again. Making sure we've got a strategy. I think we've already alluded to, strategy across everything, really. Fan engagement, transparency, our youth policy, everything really, that just seems to have kind of all gone out the window, really. Transfer policy, whatever it might be. We just need, fresh impetus and fresh ownership and fresh ideas. Because everything's just stale and really not moving forward. And I think the interesting thing is, during the pandemic, it seems like a lot of clubs that maybe have not been that transparent in the past, whether that be through their own views or what have you, have actually started becoming more transparent, but our club hasn't. You've got a lot of clubs in our league that are now, being very open and honest with their fans about COVID, their finances, releasing their financial results, asking for help if they need it from fans, etc., from local companies. Our club is completely, we've as a trust, as you know, have asked for open and honest, kind of transparent communications. Nothing.
Well, there's a comment here: has the trust managed to get dialogue with Steve Anderson, the CEO? You did for a while, but that seems to have dried up now, doesn't it?
There is some dialogue still occurring. We are. Obviously, the whole season ticket piece, there's still some dialogue around that. We're supposed to be meeting with the official supporters club, obviously the trust and the club, to talk about the results for that. We don't have that in the diary as yet, so that hasn't been organised. We're waiting. We've asked the question several times. It hasn't kind of materialised. So that's disappointing, I would say, that hasn't happened. But yeah, I mean, there is some level of dialogue between the club and the trust, but it's not probably to the level we would want, and ultimately it's not to answer the questions that we as a trust have asked the club to be more transparent over. I.e., where are we financially with regards to COVID? We've asked them to issue the accounts so we can kind of get that clear visibility of how the finances look. But obviously that hasn't materialised.
Okay, this is from Joe. And Martin, I guess this is something that a lot of fans are thinking. I won't be renewing my season ticket for the first time in 12 years if Lee Power's still the owner. The lack of transparency, continued silence and management debacle this season has gone too far. I mean, what about you? I mean, I know you miss beginning and end of seasons because of your job as a cricket scorer, and that's fair enough. But, you know, would you maintain your season ticket?
Yeah, I mean, I renew personally because I sort of enjoy the day in terms of, well, is enjoy the right word sometimes, but the day has added extras such as seeing people socially, seeing people that you just wouldn't see if you weren't going to football. So I would renew. I can see why some people have just lost patience. So I'd expect season ticket numbers to reduce quite significantly. The only thing that can stop it is if the club pours out a very generous price, really, which they're probably not going to be in a position to offer that either, are they? Because, you know, finances are stretched. I mean, I don't think I'd be surprised. I'd be shocked if they said season tickets are 350 quid, but equally, they're not going to say they're 100 quid, are they? I think we might get some of it subsidised, but I think we'll be lucky to have much subsidised, to be honest.
Well, on that note, this is from Rob. What's the panel think of a season ticket boycott next season if Lee Power's still in charge? I mean, Anna, what would you do? I mean, I love my football club. I love going to watch football. I love watching Swindon Town play football, and I've got a gig already for something Speedway related in October, and I'm already worried about the game I might be missing on that day. It's in Exeter. I'm kind of hoping if we go down, it's Exeter City against Swindon on that day, so I can go to both. You know, that's how I feel. I get that's how I get. You know, I'm already worrying about that October day. So I don't know. I can't boycott season tickets for that very reason. They are my, they're my addiction. What about you?
Yeah, I suppose in terms of season tickets for next season, I'm undecided if and when they come up. I'll have to see what the position is then. I don't know that we've got any other form of protest, but the question is, if you boycott, how long does that go on? If you look at the example of Blackpool and the Oystons, I think the Blackpool fans boycotted for a number of years. So you're not talking about a few games or a couple of months. You're potentially talking about seasons. And am I prepared to stay away for that long? I'm probably not, to be honest. I want to support the club. Everyone's going to have to establish their own level of tolerance and how far they can be pushed. And some are going to be, some are going to be more willing to boycott than others. And in terms of going back to the question about, should the supporters club and the trust get together and form some sort of protest body? I think that's another good question. But those bodies are in difficult positions because the trust is on the one hand engaged in trying to buy the ground with the club, and the supporters club also has, a presence on match days and needs to take care and tread carefully how it works with the club. So you're both in quite unenviable positions in terms of protest, I think. So clearly something needs to be done, but unless Mr. Power is willing to move over or start talking, we're so hands tied in the current environment as to how far we can go.
There's a question here about that, James. Could the trust go it alone and buy the county ground? Well, have you got a few million up your sleeve? What are the chances of that?
It's an interesting one. First of all, to Anna's point about the the juggling act, if you like, between the relationship with the club and the trust, and and the kind of protest side of things. Ultimately, Swindon Borough Council have said they're not going to. Then they don't anticipate they'll be able to sell the ground to the 50-50 joint agreement between the club and the trust, etc. Until the ownership piece is obviously resolved. So, we're kind of in limbo on that count. Majorly frustratingly, because literally we were probably a couple of weeks away before COVID hit and all the court case stuff came out. So that could have, had it happened a bit later, we could have already been in that situation as kind of 50% owners. But ultimately, quite rightly, the council will not sell until they know the outcome of the court cases, or if something has been agreed prior to the court cases over the ownership. So nothing is going to happen on that until that side of things is sorted. I believe the council are extremely keen on the the kind of model that we've got at the moment, the joint venture agreement, in terms of ownership of the county ground. I'm not sure they're quite so keen on a single entity owning it. I don't know, maybe that's not the case, but I think they like the idea of the model we've come up with the joint ownership. So I suspect what will happen is they'll wait like everyone else until they understand, the outcome of the court cases or, things being resolved out of court. And then ultimately, that ownership piece of the county ground in terms of the purchase can hopefully be reignited and with whoever the owner is of the football club. But obviously that has to happen before you can kind of move forward. But like I said, I believe that they like that model of that joint ownership with fans and the club being jointly custodians of the county ground.
For some reason, I've got an image of a container ship and the Suez Canal in my head. And I can't, kind of, somehow that sums it up at the minute. Some of these comments on my Twitter feed, and this is from Jill. A very little chance of staying up now. Today was winnable, but he played for the draw. And don't even start me on the subs at the end. Sheridan out. This is from David. Watch today. Pittman, not very good. I'm paraphrasing. Played a few minutes of decent stuff. Nice goal we scored, but playing Pittman up front on his own is a mistake, which we've touched on. Sheridan's clueless and taking us down. Also, is the Millwall owner of ours ever going to say anything? Total shambles. This is from STFCF. Power has never been concerned with anyone other than himself and his own interest. Guessing he's only increased the budget last season in order to sell the club in the higher division. No chance, is Alan Sawyer, of staying up. This is from Pete. One-dimensional tactics, lack of investment right from the start. We've been let down very badly by the owner, who seems to be completely unconcerned about the fan base. What can be done to win 3 or 4 games? And this is from Mark. I just seem to be going through the motions to attempt to attack to win the game. So there you are. That's some of the... I mean, all right, here we go then. We got Peterborough at home on Saturday. Oh, gosh, loads more coming in as well. This is from Harvey. My business is the sponsor at the back of the away shirt, NSBRC. I've got that shirt. I can't turn it around now because I'm not that flexible. And we have sadly decided not to extend our financial support until there is a change of ownership and a clear vision for the future of the club and engagement of the community is set out by the new owner. We are disappointed by this, but with no transparency as to where our money is going, we feel have no choice. Harvey, Managing Director, NSBRC, and lifelong fan. Anna, that's a little bit worrying, isn't it?
It's worrying, but needs must in the current circumstances with an owner who's not willing to talk or give any insight into what's going on behind the scenes. I think good on them, to be honest. It may hit him in the pocket, and that's where he's going to feel it most, and that's perhaps what counts with Lee Power. So I mean, if we're looking forward to the rest of the season and next season, hopefully we can do it. We can have some clarity on the ownership sooner rather than later. But I think this season's kind of done and dusted really now, isn't it? Can't really see us staying up. Saturday's going to be hard. Johnson Clark Harris is going to potentially take us to task on our poor defending. We're not likely to trouble their goalkeeper too much. Difficult to see how it's going to turn out well this season. We just have to hope for a longer term plan, and that plan not to include either Sheridan or Power.
Well, there you go, James. That's just reached us, so I literally just read that out as it came in. Let's move to Saturday then. We've got a minute or so left. Anna's already touched on it. What do you think Saturday? I mean, can we see anything other than a Peterborough win?
No. I think we all seem to do better against the better teams. And this is not just this season, but in previous seasons as well. But I honestly think Peterborough will have too much for us. I have more hope at the moment that we'll do better in the away games because we seem to play better in away games, which is probably why I'm most disappointed about us losing today, more so than Friday. I don't think we will win. I think if we get a point, that'll be a good result.
Martin, what do you reckon?
I think Saturday's a bit of a write-off, really. I think we'll be lucky to lay a glove on them. I'm not anticipating we're going to get many more points at home. I think if we're going to stay up, it's going to have to be on away points between now and the end of the season. that said, you just never know what happens. I mean, we've got Ipswich at home, haven't we? The second from last game of the season. Ipswich are 3 points away from the playoffs at the moment. You know, could it go our way? Could they be 4, 5, 6 points going into that game and be on the beach? You just don't know. You know, you don't know what happens this time of year. You know, if teams don't have anything to play for, that might help. But no, Saturday we won't get any points.
Okay, just quickly then, one word answers. Staying up, Anna?
No.
James?
Yes, skin of our teeth. That wasn't one word though, but yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's a majority. I'm chairman, so I don't have to say anything. So that's fair enough. Thank you all very much indeed. Chris, if you want to rejoin us, that would be lovely. Thank you, Anna, very much indeed, as always. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. James, and again, for being a late replacement, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And Martin as well, thank you very much indeed. Hello, Chris.
Hiya. Thank you very much all. Some wonderful comments today. Saying how interesting the discussions were and everything. So well done. Thank you. And I think we could have gone on for another hour if we'd been able to. So thanks again. We will be back next Monday to review the Peterborough game. So I hope you'll be able to join us then. Have a wonderful week and we will see you next week. Thank you. Good night.